This first episode is about the creator's liability. Here's your host Ethan and your co-hosts Ryan Weiss, Andres Gomez, and Thomas Hudson. And now, if you build something that harms others, are you responsible? Tonight, we're putting Victor Frankenstein on trial. Now, we can put this into perspective. Is Victor a true criminal, or is the creature fully responsible for his own actions? And what does responsibility really mean in this novel? Ryan, could you give examples of that?
Well, yeah, because, the creature wouldn't be in existence without its creator, Victor. Victor made it from scratch. Victor is the one, it's implied in the book that he goes and he robs graves in order to get the parts for his creature. So I think it's fair to say that Victor does have some sort of responsibility because he is its creator. And then on top of that, he also kind of throws out this innate responsibility that he has, because the second the creature opens its eyes, Victor abandons it immediately. There's no precaution to make sure it stays safe or anything. He just leaves it and lets it go on its own. And it's part of this negligence. This is where we get to the real meat and potatoes of this, because it all comes down to how much does this negligence affect the creature, because the creature does go on to kill several people and indirectly kill a few other people. And so we need to figure out if this is the creature's free will and he's doing this, or if Victor actually set him on this path by abandoning him and then constantly turning away from him, not accepting his responsibilities as his creator, and just overall just being incredibly negligent.
Yes, those are some great points, but on the other side, Thomas, you want to say something about that?
I think with how much knowledge and power and education that Victor has, he also bears an incredible amount of responsibility for the creation of his, as the creator of his creation, he bears a great responsibility for what that creation does. If he has the knowledge to put together a body and, formulate all these things, I think he also has the knowledge to foresee the future, to see what will happen with this creature once it's released. And through his labors, he abandons his creation. Once it's created, once his final goal is achieved, he abandons all responsibility, especially once the consequences appear of the actions. Once people start getting killed and the creature starts running amok, Victor just refuses to take control of the situation and refuses responsibility up until his deathbed, when it ultimately was his responsibility to take care of this creature.
Yes, those are some very great points. Now, Mary Shelley in this book is trying to guide us, show us a perspective on how the people lower in society may feel about things, but very great. Points. Now, we're going on to our first argument. Victor is responsible. We're going to look at both sides, but right now we're looking at is Victor is responsible. And now, here's a quote from the book. Quote unquote, "I had selected his features as beautiful. Beautiful, great God." And now, can you analyze this, Andres? Just give us a deeper look onto it.
So, by this quote, we can see that Victor is clearly objectifying his creation. He is explaining about how he hand-selected every single one of the features on his creature, and he first sees it as beautiful. He is treating the life of this creature like his own personal project. If you were in school and you turned your project in as a grade, you are responsible for your own grade. You are responsible for whatever you turn in. That is what Victor's doing right now. He has his own project, so he is responsible for his own project and the outcome of said project. He's also obsessed with the appearance, as the quote itself. Like he said, he hand selected every single feature on this creature. So he is clearly obsessed with how the creature looks, and later on we can see that the creature had just woken up and hadn't even said a word to him, but then he runs away simply because of how disgusting the creature looks, and that just shows how obsessed he is with appearance as a whole, instead of waiting for the creature to wake up, say something, and look at the creature's personality rather than simply its appearance.
Great analysis, Andres. So now we can look into deeper, like the literary tools that Mary Shelley is using. Like, this is AP level, so we have to look deeper into the text, because every text has a reason. Every word has a reason. So now, Ryan, could you give us some insight into what these literary tools are in this quote?
Of course. So I think the most obvious one, of course, is the syntax here. The exclamatory syntax is easily like the biggest, most sort of in your face of this quote. As you see, like, I had selected his features: beautiful, beautiful, great God. Like, you can almost hear Victor's voice. You can almost hear the shock in his voice. Just kind of as he's coming to realize, like, he's actually, like, created something. And then we've also have the repetition of beautiful. Near the end of this quote, he says, as beautiful, beautiful, great God. So it's really to build this irony, because early on he refers to his creature as beautiful. He talks about how he hand-selected the features so it could be as beautiful as possible. There's not a single piece of the creature that was just carelessly thrown on. Everything was done for a purpose, and that purpose was to look beautiful. However, the second it actually comes alive, Victor's repulsed by that, and that's where the irony comes in, because it's maybe like a day beforehand he's saying how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is, but later on, you come to see how this just completely flips on its side, and how he's horrified by it. And there's also like this tone shift from like this pride, like, it's beautiful, beautiful, and it's so, like, he can't even put it into words. This is his life's work, and it's beautiful. However, he just comes to realize that what he's created was, in his fascination with playing God, he created an absolute horror, and he, throughout the whole book, struggles to grapple with that reality.
All right, great points, Ryan. So next we're gonna move on to another quote. It's, I am thy creature, I ought to be thy Adam. Now, this is what the creature says after he's created and he's just lost and needs to find something, but that's just a summary. So, Andres, can you look deeper into this quote?
Yes, so basically the creature is implementing a little bit of, maybe it might be the wrong choice of words, but I want to say a little bit of a guilt trip towards Victor, but in a more practical sense, he's invoking a little bit of a parental contract towards Victor. He is saying that you created me, you have to be there for me, and he's using it in a biblical sense, and in saying that that God was there for Adam in the Garden of Eden. He introduced him to all this, and I should be that to you. You should be my parent, since you are my creator, you have to be teaching me all this, teach me what to do, what not to do, some right, some wrong. And we can see how Victor kind of fails a little bit when he does abandon, and the creature goes out into the woods and he burns himself with the fire. He lacks the basic knowledge that he should have, and ends up burning himself. And that just shows how negligent Victor was towards the creature, and thereby the creature goes and gets himself hurt. The creator has the creature showing Victor that he has a duty for all this, and he then fails the creature of his parental duties, his creator duties.
Great points, Andres. Now, this all wraps up into one single question. Like, does creating life automatically create obligation? Like, this is Mary Shelley talking about how parents have an obligation towards their children. And it might be even pointing on to the basis of, like, what is this talking about, like, people who give up their kids during adoption? But it all wraps together. And now, for the next topic, we're going to switch to the creature. Now, this is the next argument. Is the creature responsible? And we're going to prove that in this next argument. So starting off with a quote. I will, quote unquote, I will revenge my injuries. If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear. Now this is the start of the creature's revenge. This is what the creature says when there's that tide shift. And now, Thomas, can you analyze this quote a bit?
Yeah, and I think there's a clear analysis of this quote. There's a very clear moral choice that the creation makes in this quote. He's trying to cause intentional violence, intentional murders, to push Victor to create another creature for himself, for his own needs. The agency is present that there is he's doing these actions, and we know the creature knows right from wrong. And so he's doing these actions in order to get something he wants, which is another creature to share love with. We know ultimately Victor does not do that, which is kind of the first sense of responsibility we get from Victor. But I think the creature is very responsible for the murder and the havoc that was caused, because it was intentional violence. He knew what he was doing. He knew he was causing harm. He knew he was hurting the innocent. Which is, ultimately what we see in that quote, which he knows what he's doing.
Amazing points. Now, Ryan, can you give us this perspective from like a moral philosopher of this time, like what they would think about this issue?
Well, it's incredibly important to realize that a lot of behaviors seen in people as they grow older is that trauma can shape who they are as people. That's a well-known psychological effect. For instance, if your parents are dismissive of you when you're a child, you're going to tend to grow up thinking that you're more on yourself. It's all up to you. And so some of this trauma of like abandonment and complete rejection from humanity can seek to explain the creature's violent actions. That being said, explanation does not equal a justification, and it just does not make sense that the creature should be absolved of all wrongdoings, because at the end of the day, free will does exist, and he could have chosen not to do that.
We're going to end this podcast off with some quick fire questions that you can ask yourself too. Now, hey, Thomas, is Victor legally guilty?
Yes. Yes, I think he is.
Is he morally guilty too?
I think very much yes. On this.
Yes.
And now, is guilt shared between the monster and the creator?
Absolutely. Yes.
I would say so.
Yes.
Good. And now that's the end of our podcast. Welcome to the next episode of the Modern Prometheus. This episode is called The Silent Female. And the central question here is, why are Sadie, Elizabeth, and Justine silenced in Frankenstein? And what is Shelley saying about gender? Now, the core argument that we'll be discussing is, Shelley portrays women as morally strong but structurally powerless. Why is this? I mean, her mother was a prominent feminist. She was Mary Wollstonecraft, one of the most well-known feminists of all time. So why is her daughter silent about this struggle? And now, to start off, murder. Why do the women barely speak? And now, for my co-hosts, we have Ryan Weiss, Andres Gomez, and Thomas Hudson. And now, at first, we're going to set up some context with a little prompt. Why were women's role in the 19th century, what was the women's role in the early 19th century society? Can you start us off, Ryan?
Alright, so basically, women were fully legally dependent on the men during that time. They had very limited property rights. They weren't allowed to buy a lot of land, and they weren't allowed to have ownership of most things. And then it was expected that they would stay home and take care of the kids, while the husband would kind of lead the family. And it's kind of this idea of the angel in the house. Like, their entire role was just to hang out in the house, make sure it was well kept, and make sure that the kids didn't get themselves killed.
And now, just for another example, Thomas, can you connect this to Mary Shelley herself?
Well, Mary Shelley being the daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft, he was definitely very aware of the gender inequality that existed, and it was definitely a focus in her writing and her personality and kind of what she talked about how in the day to day.
Great points, guys. Okay, now we're gonna start off with one of the women in the book, Justine. Now she is one of the silent. She is prosecuted for crimes she never committed, but she was a woman, so she was just prosecuted and not given a voice. So now we're gonna start off with a quote. Quote unquote, I do not fear quote unquote, I do not fear to die. That pang is past. Now, Andres, can you analyze this quote and really tell us what it's about?
Yeah, of course. So basically, this is just a prime example of how Justine simply accepts her fate. Excuse me, sorry. Justine accepts her fate. This is simply just an example, or an example of another secondary example of how Justine accepts her fate is when Victor goes up to her agent and he tells her that he believes her, and that it's like he's behind her, like he knows that she's innocent, and Justine says, yes, like that means more to me than like you can ever imagine. But what's done is done. I've already accepted it. Like that gives me all the peace I need. That just shows that she's accepted her fate. She's accepted that silence, and it shows her moral strength as well. It shows how she can be silent, but her morals aren't to fight back and all that. And it's kind of sad because she's executed for a crime that she did not commit. She was framed for this, and it's just so very unfortunate that someone had to die because of the silence and for the framing.
That was a great analysis, giving us a deeper look into that, Andres. So now, Thomas, looking at this quote, can you give us a feminist interpretation on how they would look at this?
Looking at it from a femininity point of that time, obviously we know during the time the justice system, lawyers, judges, all that they're all men. There was no female presence in the courtroom at this time. So a female voice on trial is going to be very dismissed, not going to be looked at. Really the men already have formulated their opinion. They've already formulated what they think has happened, and they're not willing to change that based on the person being on trial at that point. And we know Justine's confession was a false confession, extracted under pressure from, we assume, the local priest, who told her, if you don't confess, you're going to go to hell. So she confessed under that precipice and was executed for it, unfortunately, but that's just what happened.
Amazing analysis. And now, of course, this is AP Lit, so we're going to analyze this quote. Ryan, can you give me some example of literary tools Mary Shelley uses in this quote?
Alright, the main tone of this is that Justine is very, reserved. She's very calm when she's saying this. And she's kind of accepted her fate at this point. And then it's very ironic because, as Thomas discussed earlier, she was pressured into being punished and she's taking it as though she is actually guilty and feels remorse for a crime, which is ironic because she never actually did it. And then there's some deep symbolism of this, of Justine representing kind of all women, being crushed by societal institutions, whether it's the governments or at their households by the men in their lives. It's just very rich in symbolism, right?
Okay, and now we can look deeper into this, and we can ask, why does Victor stay silent during the trial? Is it because he has that male agenda that he's not willing to give up because he knows he's wrong? He knows that he caused Justine's death, but he doesn't speak up. Why is this? Is this Mary Shelley saying something about men? But next we have another topic. We are going to talk about Elizabeth, the idealized angel. This is another prominent woman in this book. And we're going to start off with another key quote. Quote unquote, she was the living spirit of love to soften and attract. Now, and attract. This is Victor talking about his wife, his possession. But, Andres, can you really analyze this?
Yeah. Um. So yeah. So Elizabeth is described as some sort of spirit rather than a person. Not only in this quote, but she is not straight up, but indirectly described as this throughout the novel. And she she's idealized in Victor's mind. Victor sees her as some sort of reasoning behind everything. Behind everything he does, he uses her, not using her, but uses the idea of her to like back up whatever actions he's doing. Um, she is then reduced to an emotional function, like I said, just be kind of like a reason behind everything. And she at the beginning she only appears when one she's getting introduced to like how she came to be in uh so close to Victor, but then she's also um is, apologize. She also comes to be like as an emotional function when we see her letters that she writes to Victor, and we see how those affect Victor because he feels so very like connected to her, and that's the only thing that draws him all the way back to Geneva. And we see once she's getting introduced to us in the early chapter that she was adopted, and then to be into her family, uh, take care, they took care of her and all that, and then later on, it seems like she was adopted just to be Victor's wife. So yeah.
All right, great view on that, Andres. Now, Thomas, can you give us the feminist angle again? See really what people would be thinking about it in their day and age.
During this time, women were really looked to for just their beauty and the role they played in the house and how gentle they were and just raising the kid. You know, um, they never really had their own independence. They were always with the man and with the kid. They had no, they were not allowed ambition. They were not allowed to take out or really have any autonomy outside of doing laundry and knitting, saying raising kids, feeding them, taking care of them, breastfeeding. And we can in the relationship with Victor, where Victor goes off across Europe to go study abroad and go, indulge in this inspiration and passion and all that, where she is forced to sit at home and like she waits for him, she sends him letters, she makes sure he's doing all right. Other than that, she doesn't have much going on.
Amazing. And now, AP Ryan, let's see what you got. Literary tool. All right.
So for starters, we have the diction or just word choice, and specifically spirit and soften, just kind of trying the fact that she's, like Andrew said, she's become kind of like a spirit. And then it's just, she's objectified through a metaphor. She is reduced to the point where she's no longer like described as a woman, but more or less, or not even as a woman, but as like a human being, but she's more described as just an object. It's very appropriate for the time, and especially from our narrator Victor, as Victor isn't quite the feminist, and during this time, it's incredibly common for women to be spoken of as if they're just like an inanimate object, like a lamp or a couch or something.
All right, great viewpoint. And now we can go on and on about this. We're just going to give a little short snippet of another example of a side character, Stacy. She is the partial exception to this. Stacy chooses independence. She rejects her father's control, and she does seek education. So she does represent this kind of feminist hope, and she is active rather than passive, and really shows that liberation narrative that here Mary Shelley's mom showed. But she is still just a side character. Yeah. But now we're gonna wrap this up with some questions. Guys, is the destruction of women symbolic of the destruction of balance?
I would say not in this case. Um, I don't think here it's less. I don't think here it's a destruction of them, but rather just where they were in society at that time, and society had balanced itself out with that way. Obviously, going to the 1980s, 1990s, the balance shifted, but it stayed balanced. Some things moved around. Women got more freedoms and started into the job market and all that, but it stayed balanced.
And now, just with the final quote to wrap this up. In Frankenstein, silence isn't a weakness, it is a warning. Welcome to the third episode of The Modern Prometheus, a podcast about Frankenstein. This episode, episode 3, is about the nature of evil. And now, we have a central question. Is the creature born as, this term is used, tabula rasa? It means basically a blank slate. Or is he inherently evil? Does he have evil inherent within him? And now, we're looking at this through a psychoanalytic lens to criticize this. Was Frankenstein's creature born a monster, or was he made into one? Tonight we examine whether the creature begins as innocent, or if he becomes corrupted, or whether Mary Shelley suggests evil is already present within him. And now, to start off, what does tabula rasa mean? Philosophical concept that individuals are born without built-in mental content, and that all knowledge is acquired through experience and perception. Now, that's just philosopher, mumbo jumbo, but in summary, it basically means we're a clean slate. We are formed by the world around us, and we learn. But now, what does Romanticism say about human nature? Romanticism was really big at this time, and it emphasizes that individuals are born pure but are often corrupted by society, meaning that not a clean slate. And now, why would Mary Shelley care about this debate? We're going to start off with Ryan, being our literary historian.
All right, so for starters, it's important to realize what was going on at the time period. This was during the Enlightenment. And so at the time, there was a lot of enlightened thinkers, such as John Locke, who was introducing the idea of a blank slate, or when you're born into the world, you are completely a blank slate, and your interactions turn you into who you are, basically. There's also the romantic belief in natural goodness, which is where basically you believe that when you were born, by default, you are naturally good. You're naturally good-natured, and the only reason you would become bad is if something were to influence you in one way. And lastly, it's just Victor can be seen as somewhat of a failed parent, in the sense where he abandoned his child, he abandoned his creation, and that it really frames Victor as more of a failed parent, because he abandoned his child, and he is the reason why he corrupted that blank slate.
Great addition, Ryan. And now we're gonna look at this as a lens from the creature being a clean slate, as tabula rasa. And now we're gonna start off with one key quote. Quote unquote, "I was benevolent and good. Misery made me a fiend." Now this is a quote from when the creature was having an existential crisis, and just shows how the creature did have a clean slate. And now, Thomas, can you analyze this? Like, look at it through a psychoanalytic lens?
You know, looking at this from an analytic lens of a creature, we see that from this quote, he has self-awareness. He is aware of his mental state, good and evil, bad and good, or, well, same thing, but like grief and happiness. It shows that the trauma he experienced transformed him. It changed him. And that's what happens, is trauma changes personality. And so when the creature was rejected by the DeLacy's, we saw a psychological fracture, which that's where a lot of this stems from, a lot of this hatred and anger towards his creator. He feels like he was abandoned it's like being abandoned by your own parents. He feels like he was abandoned by his creator, which he was. And so there's a lot of trauma and, problems within the creature from that rejection.
Great points, Thomas. And now, of course, AP Lit time. Let's talk about some literary tools, Andres. Highlight some.
All right, so some of the main diction that stands out is the words benevolent, misery, and fiend. First off, when he says he was benevolent, he means that he was naive, he was benevolent and good means he was naive, and he was just open to new ideas. He had no idea what was going on. Back to that tabula rasa, he had a blank slate, and he just had no idea what was, like, he was just open to new ideas, and he was open to the good. But then when he was rejected and got that misery, that made him a fiend, and that is when he became that awful creature that Victor despises. It's not because of just the looks anymore, it's now because of the personality and how he wants to treat others. And the tone shifts from him being innocent and once again naive to being bitter and simply once again going back to fiend, that awful creature. And the syntax here helps us mirror the emotional intensity of this whole scene.
Great points, Andres. And now we can definitely tell from this that the creature is going through an existential crisis. And this is continued in another quote, quote unquote, "No father had watched my infant days." And this is the creature basically regretting not having a parent, not having a guiding figure, trying to figure out things on his own. And now, Ryan, can you analyze this quote?
I love to analyze this. Anyways, so what we have to realize is that the creature suffers from a lot of abandonment trauma, and it's really the defining trait of him. And then we also have, like I said earlier, he's a failed authority figure. As near the end of the book, we kind of see that the creature's basically has reversed the roles, and that Victor is now subservient to his own creation. And the creature really lacks moral guidance, as he does have basic conceptions on what's good and bad, but he ultimately just gives into vengeance because he was never taught any other way of handling his feelings. Anyways, back to you, Ethan.
Wonderful analyzation. Ryan, let's see what we got next. And now, let's start a discussion. And you guys can answer this too. Is the creature blaming society, or is he avoiding responsibility for his actions? Oh, we have a special guest right now, and he can answer this discussion question. Is the creature blaming society, or is he avoiding responsibility?
Ooh, I don't know if the creature's necessarily blaming society, although he does speak to the fact that society has not lived up to what he expected society to be. But I think mostly he's blaming his creator. In fact, in chapter 10, when Victor first finally meets his creation, the creature goes on and on about the idea that he just wants Victor to hear his tale and that Victor is the defining factor of who and how he views the world.
Great point, Brian. That was our special guest, Mr. Maceman. And now next, we have argument 2. Was the creature's evil inherent? And we're going to start this off with a key quote for evidence. Quote unquote, "I will revenge my injuries. If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear." Now it takes place at the turning point of the creature when the creature realizes that he has power. He has power over other people. And he at this point wants to use it for evil. And now, Thomas, can you analyze this?
You know, what we're seeing here is a conscious moral choice. He's making that choice that if he can't get what he wants, and if he can't get love, and if he can't, these needs, if he can't have them, fulfilled, he will cause fear, he will cause harm, he will get his revenge. And this is a clear moral choice, which shows that the creature is intelligent. After all, we know he's intelligent, but it shows a deeper shift from a victim of grief and isolation to an aggressor, to becoming an aggressor. And the language he uses here is one of power and control. He's taking control of the dynamic between him and, he's taking control of the dynamic between the two of them, and he's using it against Victor.
Wonderful, Thomas. And now let's look at the psychologist angle. Look at the psychoanalytic angle. Andres, can you take this one?
Of course.
So, real quick. So, the psychoanalytic angle is basically, it's overpowering the moral restraint that the creature has, and the narcissistic injury that the creature has. It turns into the aggression that he holds within him. It then transfers over to how he treats others around him and how he treats others after he has already been rejected.
Great point, Andres. Let's move on to the next section. Now, I'm gonna challenge you guys with a question again. Does suffering justify violence? If people are suffering, does it justify acting out? Does that justify acting out in violence, acting out in protest, or to what the creature did, killed many, many people? And now, we're all gonna answer this together, guys. Is the creature morally responsible?
Absolutely, yes, I would say so.
Agree, I would have to say intuitively so.
I would say yes.
Or is he psychologically conditioned to cause harm because of the way he grew up?
I'd say no, although he definitely has some grief, which is some motive for his actions, it's not the only reason why.
I'll give you 3 words. No.
What are the other 2?
No and no.
Great.
No.
All right. And now that comes up to our conclusion. I'm going to wrap this up, and we're going to go through some points to wrap this up. Humans are shaped by their environment, so the creature may be too. But even though we are shaped by our environment, we still bear responsibility for our choices. The creature still, although he did not have a good upbringing, he still has the responsibility for killing many, many people. And Victor's rejection was the catalyst to this. And the creature's revenge was his choice. So, and I'm going to end it off with another quote like I always do. Perhaps the true monster is not born, but created. Welcome to our podcast, and this is our final episode, episode 4, to the modern Prometheus. And now we're looking at it from science versus nature. And we're going to be comparing Frankenstein to another modern Prometheus. If you've ever watched the movie Avengers Age of Ultron, there's a lot of connections between that and Frankenstein. And now, the central question is, when humans create artificial intelligence, do they inevitably create destruction? And now, Victor Frankenstein and Ultron are modern Promethean figures, creators whose ambitions outpace their moral responsibility. But in 1818, Mary Shelley created a scientist who created life and lost control. Can we compare this to Tony Stark, who created life in the form of an AI, right, and demanded human extinction? Are Victor Frankenstein and Ultron really that different? All right, Thomas, can you start up with some context for us?
So, a brief overview of what we're seeing here is Victor's experiment is an animation of dead tissue that he's collected. An Ultron creation by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. The purpose of this is to protect the Earth. Both were created with good intentions, but as we know, Victor's did not go very well.
All right, great point. And now, we can compare this to creation out of fear. And now here's another quote from Frankenstein. Quote unquote, learn from me. How dangerous is the acquirement of knowledge. This is shown through Victor, who achieves all this knowledge from ambition but leads to a travesty. Can this be compared to Tony Stark? And now, let's hear it from Andres. Analyze this quote.
So this quote, just to hear it once again, says, learn from me how dangerous is the acquirement of knowledge. Right here, Victor is warning people of ambition. He is telling people, like he does with, similar to how he does with Walton at the end, he's warning him about ambition because he knows what ambition can lead to and where it led him, and he wants people to get as far away from that as possible. So he's also telling us how knowledge was pursued without moral insight. He had no idea. He may have had the good intentions of creating a creation that would possibly better the world and whatnot, but he had no idea where it was truly going to go. This had never happened before, and he just wants people to warn him about the dangers of exploring the deep unknown.
Great points, Andres. And now, Ryan, do you want to parallel this to Ultron?
So basically, the parallel is that Ultron was originally created in order to stop future alien invasions. But in the end, he comes to the conclusion that humanity itself is the threat. And so as such, he turns against his creators, and, well, the Avengers plays out. And it's also kind of the same thing, the creature was originally made as a part of this kind of like idea of scientific advancement or for the betterment of mankind. However, he turns against his intended purpose, like Ultron, and deems that humanity itself is the problem. And so just to leave like a little question just for you to kind of like think about is that, do creators build monsters, or do their creators reveal their own flaw through their creation?
That's Ryan for you. And now we're setting on the second quote. Quote unquote, I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel. And now, can we hear this analysis from Thomas?
Yeah, what we're seeing here is the creature feels betrayed. He feels so rejected and betrayed. He thinks he's supposed to be something great and something amazing, but instead he's just a lowly fallen angel, a lowly demon. The creature was created for greatness, but he's treated as a horror and as disgusting and as a terrible thing. And so this is obviously hurting the creature very deeply.
All right, and now all of these things of Frankenstein can be compared to Ultron. Can you do that for us, Andres?
Of course I can. So, comparing this to Ultron believes that he is humanity's evolutionary step, and just like the creature, he knows that there's no one else that's ever been created like this. He knows that he's the first. He knows that this is truly an evolutionary step for mankind. But he also is aware of his own repercussions that come from this consequence. Not only his own repercussions, but the repercussions towards his creator as well that he ended up causing for him. And Ultron calls the Avengers his puppets, similar to how the creature treats everyone around him in society.
Amazing points. And now we can tell that they both, Ultron and the creature, believe that they are kind of correct. And now we can see that both of them believe that they are kind of correcting human weakness. They are better than normal humans are. And we can see this through Ultron, who makes a better body, and the creature, who is better than humans. But they turn destructive when they are rejected. Like Ultron tries to end the world when he realizes he's not accepted into society. And the creature just tries to destroy Victor's life, all his loved ones, when he realizes that he is rejected from his own creator. And now we're gonna look at this from a lens from creation and control. Hey, can you give me an angle for this, Ryan?
So, viewing this from the Marxist angle, Victor creates his own life, but at the same time, he refuses to take any responsibility towards his creation. So Victor creates his life of his own, and yet he refuses to take any sort of responsibility or accountability for that. And kind of in the same way, Stark creates Ultron as a defense system, but at the end of the day, it's a weaponized intelligence. And then both of them reflect super strong and elite power structures, and both were created as an attempt to control chaos, Ultron with war and invasion, and the creature with just scientific advancement and bringing back the dead and leading to immortality. And this eventually leads to something that revolts against its own creator.
All right, and now for a third quote. You are my creator, but I am your master. Obey. Now, we can see this as a power reversal and how the creation becomes dominant to the creator. And this is shown both through Frankenstein, when he realizes he can mess up Victor's life. And then this is also shown through Ultron, who realizes he can destroy humanity so he can save the Earth. This also shows as like a struggle metaphor, creation versus a creator, that power dynamic. But they both seize control and they both attempt some sort of domination. And now let's end with some discussion questions. Is AI a real danger in our world, just like Frankenstein was a danger to Victor?
Absolutely. I think AI is very dangerous.
Absolutely. I think it's very dangerous, especially just like in Frankenstein, the responsibility aspect of it. If we're not responsible with how we use AI, it can truly become a very serious danger to this world.
I'm also going to have to agree with Andres. I just do not think it's a good idea. And if for whatever reason we do decide to do this, we need to be incredibly responsible and incredibly cautious with it.
And now, if AI is a real danger, is the human ego worse?
I would say no. Not one's ego itself.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Andres. Not ego in and of itself.
All right.
It insists upon itself.
And we'll send you off with another key quote. Shelley's warning isn't just about monsters. It's about creators who refuse accountability. Ultron is simply Frankenstein's rewritten in code.